Longevity is not the same thing as workability. Workability has a lot to do with the market. Does your employer want you at older ages? Does your employer feel that your experience is as valuable? Does your employer think that your skills are just as good or better as new graduates or new entrants?
On Wealth Track, influential labor economist Teresa Ghilarducci argues that working longer is not the solution to the retirement crisis.
Funding provided by ClearBridge Investments, the Fairholme Foundation, First Eagle Investments, Royce Investment Partners, Baird, Bill Miller, Research Affiliates, Strategas Asset Management, Women Investing in Security and Education, and Matthews Asia.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Wealth Track. I'm Consuelo Mack. Americans are living longer, and many don't have enough money to support themselves in retirement. It is a national problem garnering high-powered attention. In his widely read annual letter to investors, BlackRock's co-founder and chairman Larry Fink's lead title was Time to Rethink Retirement. He called retirement one of the mid-21st century's biggest economic challenges. He wrote, "Providing people what my parents built over time, a secure, well-earned retirement, is a much harder proposition than it was 30 years ago, and it'll be a much harder proposition 30 years from now. People are living longer lives. They'll need more money." He cited some sobering statistics. Nearly half of Americans aged 55 to 65 reported not having a single dollar saved in personal retirement accounts. The Social Security Administration itself says that by 2034, it won't be able to pay people their full benefits. He commented that the shift from defined benefit to defined contribution has been, for most people, a shift from financial certainty to financial uncertainty. Fink believes there are solutions to this challenge, and he is in a position to make a difference. As he notes, more than half the estimated $10 trillion of assets that BlackRock manages are for retirement, covering 35 million Americans, about a quarter of the country's workers. Among his solutions are first helping Americans invest for retirement with help from businesses and government, making investing automatic, extending the retirement age, and encouraging people to work longer. Well, this week's guest strongly disagrees with the working longer solution, and she has recently written a book about it. She is Teresa Ghilarducci. The book is Work, Retire, Repeat: The Uncertainty of Retirement in the New Economy. She is an influential labor economist, professor of economics at the New School for Social Research, where she is director of the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis and the Retirement Equity Lab, which researches the causes and consequences of the retirement crisis. She is also the co-author with Tony James, the former president and executive vice chair of Blackstone, of Rescuing Retirement, a plan to guarantee retirement security for all Americans. You can see Wealth Track's past interviews with each of them on wealthtrack.com. I asked Ghilarducci why she is so strongly opposed to the working longer solution.
We have a retirement crisis. People will not have enough money, and many people don't have enough money to retire on. Most people will not have enough money to maintain their standard of living or to avoid being poor. We've known this for a long time. It's easy to count the people who are going to be over 62, 65. It's easy to know how much money they have. We have a Social Security Administration that keeps track of how much money they have. We know how much Social Security they're going to get. We survey them every couple of years about how much wealth they have. And so I think it was a comforting idea that just choosing to work longer would bail us out of this severe lack of income for a huge part of our population. But the reason why it won't work out is because most people don't choose whether or not they work longer. Most people who are retired tell surveyors that they retired a lot sooner than they expected to and a lot sooner than they planned to. And their money plans depended upon them being able to work, a few more years, but the economy or their employer had other plans. And so most people were pushed out because of a layoff, because of a broad recession, or because their own health like their physical and mental capacities weren't keeping up, or they had to leave their job to take care of their spouse. So life might look really good on a piece of paper, when you're doing your planning, and you say, well, I'll just work until 67, or you probably have heard this, I'll work until I die. But you don't decide, your
Right.
worth in the labor market. The employer and the economy does. So that's one reason. The other reason is a lot of people are working longer to make ends meet. And on paper, that looks good because they can contribute more to their pension plan. They can delay taking money out of their 401k if they have anything. They can delay collecting Social Security, and then you get that big bonus if you delay collecting Social Security all the way up to age 70. But it turns out the kinds of jobs that older people have are often very low pay or part-time. So it turns out even if you're working longer, you're drawing down on your 401k, you're taking your Social Security early, so you still don't have enough money to retire on.
The outlook sounds so grim, and the situation does, the way you're describing it. And yet, if I look at paper, as you just said, I mean, the boomer generation is the wealthiest generation by far ever. There are trillions of dollars in 401ks, and our life expectancy has increased dramatically, as has our health in, as we get older. We are healthier, there's no question. So I'm trying to, reconcile the picture that you're portraying and what I'm reading as a financial journalist. So can you describe the discrepancy so that we understand where this crisis is?
Well, let's all get together in an auditorium, all of us boomers, and let's first invite just the typical people. So we're all there in the room, and we look kind of typical. It looks like the picture I just painted. Most of us, if we're typical, will not have enough money to maintain our living standards. Many of us of that group will not be able to avoid poverty or basically de facto poverty. But then members of our group walk in. Elon Musk, Larry Fink, some of the billionaires that are among us, they walk in the room, and all of a sudden we are the richest cohort of people that the world has ever seen.
Right.
But the typical experience has not changed one iota. So what has happened in our cohort is amazing and incredible, really quite incredible, because we haven't seen it before: inequality in wealth. And along with those wealthy people have come incredible amounts of health. The top tier of us cohort, are not only wealthier, they're also healthier.
Yes.
That there are a group of people who have been able to maintain their health, stability in their lives. Their jobs have been stable. Their education has just increased over and over again. They've been able to adapt their jobs and the computer to make their jobs more interesting. I, as a professor, have used the computer to actually control the pace and content of my work. So the computer doesn't surveil me. The computer hasn't speeded up my work. The computer has aided my interesting work. That's probably true for senators, and for presidents. That those of us who kind of control and steer retirement policy have done just fabulously well. But we are oddballs. That's what I talk about in my book.
Right.
That the people who are in control of creating retirement policy are really strange creatures. And I think that we have projected our own wealthy, healthy experience onto the rest of the population. And we have contributed to basically a two-tiered system where the bottom 90%, the typical people, do not have enough to retire on and don't have jobs in which they can control the pace and content of their work. And the elites are healthier, wealthier, and we think work is great.
Another popular solution as well is to extend the retirement age. One of the reasons is that, again, when Social Security was introduced, it was the life expectancy was much shorter. So what's wrong with just extending it gradually over time to reflect the reality of the demographics?
So I can't say we haven't improved our longevity, but the rate of increase has been so different by race, class, and gender. So we are not all healthier at every age, and we're not all living longer. And also, longevity is not the same thing as workability. Workability has a lot to do with the market. Does your employer want you at older ages? Does your employer feel that your experience is as valuable? Does your employer think that your skills are just as good or better as new graduates or new entrants? For some sectors, yes. For most sectors, no. The acceleration of demands of our economy often will shift the preferences towards younger incoming workers. That's especially true in tech and finance. So the skill obsolescence, the life cycle of skills and experience do seem to be speeding up. And I found in my research is that the rate of return of experience is not as high as it used to be. So I'm seeing a lot of obsolescence. I'm seeing a lot of workers being kind of tossed out, pushed out, pushed down as early as their 50s. I'm asked by lay people and also experts who say, isn't it true that the computer has really made work easier for an older person? And this is new research. I mean, this is one of the reasons it took me so long to write the book, is that research was coming out every 5 minutes, it seemed, to really scrutinize what the computer has done to jobs and what has the computer done to jobs that older workers have. And I'm finding that the computer has actually increased the demands of those jobs through surveillance. Think of the Amazon warehouse, the place where older people do find work on a part-time basis or seasonal basis.
Right.
The computer in their ear is telling them where to go, where to pick a package and put it in the cart, and how to do it faster. They're surveilling every movement that older worker is making, and so it's increased the intensity of the work. Or the older
Pressure
worker
must be intense.
yeah, who right, who is staring at a computer processing insurance claims, is requiring more keen eyesight, something that doesn't improve with age, and intense concentration in a rapid way. So the computer has probably made jobs for older workers a little bit harder. And this is what I teased out of the kind of gerontological and the psychological and medical literature that I reviewed, that at older ages, that intensity and pressure kind of combines with levels of cortisol. And add that to having a boss, a real boss, surveil you, taking away your own agency. It has a worse effect on mental and physical health at older ages than it did when you're a kid.
That's just groundbreaking
I think
research
it is.
and conclusions, Teresa. It really is.
And I was able to connect that to our economic and social design of retirement savings. You know, just this medical literature combined with this sort of economic structure forms my opinion of what you just asked me. Is working longer a viable solution to our aging society? And the answer is a definitive no.
Yeah.
So I want to make a point about
Yeah.
the longevity that we have gotten and the health that we have gotten at older ages. Everyone thinks that that happened outside of the fact that we had retirement, but there's evidence to show that because people were able to retire, they were able to live longer. It wasn't in despite of the fact that we were retiring, it was because we were retiring that added to our longevity. My prediction based on the evidence is that if we make older people work longer or look for work longer, that those longevity gains are going to start reversing.
So you actually do have statistics that show, you know, the people who have defined benefit pensions, for instance, have a longer retirement. So
Right.
they're either living
Yeah.
longer or they're retiring early, but they have a longer retirement than those who don't have a pension plan.
Even having a defined benefit plan for 15 or 20 years really helps prevent poverty. And it also helps you retire when you need to. So people with defined benefit plans are more likely to retire around 64, 65. In some sectors, in coal mining, they're retiring 30 and out. And when you're police and fire, you're retiring 22 and out. So that you're able to take a defined benefit plan, pay a pension, bridge to a Social Security, and keep your standard of living. And I found that just being under a well-designed plan, like a defined benefit plan, meant that you were able to off-ramp and you were able to keep your health until your lifespan was over. So I found lots of evidence that for many people with certain kinds of jobs, that retirement makes you healthier.
So here's the rub with that, because I'm sure that is the case. The security of having a defined benefit pension it is pretty astonishing, and it works. But the rub is that it's not affordable. If you look at other countries, they are also attempting to extend retirement ages because they can't afford it. Companies cannot afford it because they can't afford to support a retired workforce for 30 some odd years in retirement. It's great for a retiree. So here we have the new system, which you basically, and actually Larry Fink, I thought that was very interesting too, thought that the replacing the defined benefit pension with a defined contribution has added to the uncertainty of retirement, which you've been saying for decades. So the 401ks and the IRAs are not doing the job. And his point is, and others are, the solution is to reform our savings plan, reform the 401ks and the IRAs, and get more help from employers, get more help matching funds from the government. So do you still think that those are workable retirement vehicles? I mean, that's what we've got. So
that's what we've got. And this is the good news, is that people are well aware of their financial futures. They really know what's going on, and they have a vision that their hard work will pay off in economic security. Most Americans, tens of millions of workers, don't want to be rich in retirement, but they do want to have enough. And the other good news is that with well-designed pensions and a well-designed system, we can afford it, that we won't have to have nosebleed high tax rates, that Sweden or Italy have, at 30% of our pay is taxed to go pay for a welfare state. We don't need to have that. Getting from here to there is really not that expensive with a well-designed system.
As a matter of fact, Teresa, you co-authored a paper with Kevin Hassett, who was the chairman of Trump's Council on Economic Advisors. So there's a bipartisan effort, which is the basis of something called the Retirement Savings for Americans Act of 2023, a Senate bill.
Yes, and it's basically the framework is everybody who doesn't have a pension plan or retirement savings to supplement Social Security should have one. We cannot survive or fix the system by just putting more and more money in Social Security. Social Security is not meant to be the sole source of retirement income. Unfortunately, it is the sole source for the very lowest income workers and their families. You need to have what we call advanced funded pension plans. You put $1 in when you're in your 30s and it grows from the investment market. You keep on savings, but you don't have to tell a whole cohort of workers that they just have to reach into their pockets and pay for the next cohort. You have the finance markets, pay for some of that.
Sure.
But you also need an insurance plan to take care of disability and other kinds of insurable events. So you need an insurance plan at the bottom and you need advanced funded pensions on the top. The well-designed retirement systems all over the world have those elements. Kevin Hassett, of all people, who advises the Trump administration, and I come together because we came together as PhD economists. Essentially at core, we're engineers. We want to design systems that work for the people and the economy that we have. And we realize the simple math that if you save early and keep that money in, and it's well invested without having to pay a lot of fees, and you don't take it out for emergencies, you will be able to supplement your Social Security and live comfortably for the rest of your life. I can complain about 401ks till the cows come home, but it's better than nothing, and 83 million people have nothing. So we have in that Senate bill a plan that is modeled after the thrift savings plan, but it's the plan that the federal government has for their own employees and members of Congress
In
have.
Congress, right.
So if it's good enough for them,
Yeah.
it should be good enough for the Uber driver.
Teresa, what are the chances of that bill passing?
Better than it's ever had a chance to pass before. Here's my 2 cents on the politics. First of all, the AARP has endorsed it. That's golden. Second of all, it is endorsed by Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. There's one opponent, and these are brokers who have gained a business, crafted a business out of the individual retirement account and the 401k. But I think they're a little short-sighted. I think they can make a lot of money as 83 million people have money to invest.
And is there an annuity as part of this?
Yeah, exactly. So there's 3 things you have to do in a pension system to make it work. You have to get people to save. They have to accumulate.
So
You have to
automatic savings.
Yeah, automatic savings.
Automatic, right.
You have to invest it well, so it has to be in a sensible place with that's diversified and not high fees. You have to keep it in, and you have to actually deaccumulate it so that it lasts a lifetime. That plan that I support would allow people to top off their Social Security with an annuity. Social Security is well loved by all participants.
Right, and that is an annuity. It's the annuity,
It's an annuity.
that Americans, the only annuity that most Americans have.
So if you live into 116, you still have it, and it's indexed for inflation. Well, this is a way to actually top off your Social Security.
One investment for a long-term diversified portfolio, and the last time that we talked, you just basically, it was an action, and you just said, defer Social Security for as long as you can to until the age of 70 when you've got to take it out. What would it be?
Why we're sitting around waiting for Congress to act. People have to run their lives, and people have to plan their financial future. For many people who can wait until 70, go ahead and invest in delaying your Social Security. That's not many of us, and that's the lucky of us. So I'm talking to a minority of people. If you can wait to delay Social Security, wait as long as you can. I've even told friends who aren't wealthy, but maybe will have $80,000 in their 401k, hey buddy, try to spend that before you start collecting your Social Security. Because your 401k is going to earn, maybe 5-6%, because you have it in safe assets. But your Social Security annuity will actually make 6 to 8%, because every time you delay, you get a higher benefit, and your Social Security is indexed to inflation where your 401k isn't. So try to even delay a month or 2 or a year or 2. You'll get a higher rate of return.
So Teresa Ghilarducci, thank you so much for joining us in Wealth Track. Congratulations on Work, Retire, Repeat. This has been a lifelong quest for you to solve the retirement crisis and to bring it to our attention, and it's all coming together, and you are very much in the forefront of this effort. So thank you, Teresa, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you again.
At the close of every Wealth Track, we try to give you one suggestion to help you build and protect your wealth over the long term. This week's action point is simplify your financial retirement decisions and consider a target date fund. Target date funds are the very popular all-in-one set-it-and-forget-it retirement savings vehicles that investors are pouring money into, a total of $3.5 trillion at last count. You simply decide on a year you want to retire. That's the target date. Open an account, and the fund will invest in a diverse portfolio of mostly stocks and bonds until your retirement date. More stocks in your younger years and more bonds and defensive investments as you near retirement. The managers do all the rebalancing for you along the way. Not surprisingly, 80% of the funds are with the biggest firms: Vanguard, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, BlackRock, and American funds. They are all reputable, highly professional, well-run fiduciary firms built to last with proven track records. Morningstar just published their list of which funds they consider to be the best and named only 6 that earn a Morningstar analyst rating of gold. They are American Funds Target Date Retirement, BlackRock LifePath Index, Fidelity Freedom Index, PIMCO Real Path Blend, T. Rowe Price Retirement, and T. Rowe Price Retirement Blend. If you want to simplify your investment planning for retirement, target date funds are a solution, and they now have track records to prove it. Next week, PIMCO's Chief Investment Officer Dan Ivison will tell us why global bonds are back and how to invest in them. In this week's extra feature, Teresa Ghilarducci shares her most important personal retirement strategy. If you are so inclined, please follow us on Facebook, X, and our YouTube channel. Thank you for spending time with us. Enjoy your weekend and make the week ahead a healthy, profitable, and productive one.